Hello, everyone. This is Rear Admiral Sinclair Harris, United States Navy retired, a former award winner. Thank you, Battleship Iowa. Thank you, National Museum of the Surface Navy. You can see the award here over my shoulder. Samuel L. Gravely, Leadership Award winner. And Just a retired naval officer. I still work today for a government firm that supports the government and do a lot of different activities in support of sailors, Marines, and their families in different capacities. I want to spend a minute talking to you all, or a few minutes talking to you all about Black History Month. And while I'll be focused on Black History Month, it really has to do with all the different history months: Women's History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian Pacific Islander, list goes on and on, and why they're important. And I want to do that somewhat highlighting, in particular, the life of a gentleman who was my North Star. I'm very honored to get an award in his name, and that's Samuel L. Gravely, America's first African American admiral. And when I look at these different months, and this is Black History Month, I think about it in the context of, well, why does it matter? Why do these different celebrations make a difference? Are they things that divide us? Or are they things that we should embrace, regardless of our race, color, creed, orientation, or what have you? And I take it that it's saying that we should embrace. And I do that because I think of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And when you think about our yesterdays, America's yesterdays, uh, we need to honor the legacy of our past, learn those lessons that have come over time. Blood and treasure has been spilt time and again for this nation to be free and become freer, to live up to the aspirations of the Constitution, even more than the framers may have initially intended, but to keep America strong. We need to honor yesterday, be strengthened by their struggles. And again, I look at people like Samuel Gravely, first African American admiral, who him and his wife were stopped by the shore patrol for impersonating an officer as an admiral. Okay, uh, and did not respond with violence, with uh, ignorance, with anger. Always rose above. And when I think about him, I think of his wife Alma. She just passed away at 102 years old, and she was smart to the day she passed away. I am so strengthened by the lessons I've learned from their life, from the life of Frankie Peterson, first African American general in the United States Marine Corps, and from the inventors, so many inventors. Did you know that one of the people that helped build the global positioning system that you all and every one of us use today was an African American woman who lives out in Patuxent River, Maryland to this day, Gladys West. So, you know, we need to honor our legacy because they did important things. They strengthen us, and I mean all of us. One of the people that I honor from the past more than most others is Eleanor Roosevelt. There's a woman who made a difference, who took a stand during her time that we continue to benefit from this day. She got in a plane and rode in of a Tuskegee Airman, a black man in World War II. That was a brave thing because those planes were not that great. And she did it. So, yesterday is important. Today, we all see all of the division, You hear about it in the news, you see it in the media. Everybody's pointing the finger at others and or doing worse. And we need to understand each other in a deeper way so that we can find ways to make it through the complexities of this world. They are getting more complex more quickly all the time. There's a banner a friend of mine, a Marine friend of mine, okay, gave me that I hand over my desk. Hope you can see it. And what does it say? Do not be afraid of change. Be afraid of not changing. One of my other favorite books, and I got a bunch of them back here, and some that I've given away, is World Guns, Germs, and Steel. And in Guns, Germs, and Steel, the question that it asks is, why do certain societies succeed and other ones don't? Why do the ones do better? And it's about adaptation. It's about being able to not just take anything or roll with the flow, but understand the changing environment that you're in and how to adapt to make it better as quickly as you can. Demographics in our country, you need to look at them. If we're not embracing each other from a very much changed multicultural society that we're in now, you're falling behind. We're doing ourselves a disservice by not understanding and adapting. So adapting change is constant. We all play a part in it. And what does it lead to? Tomorrow. So we've talked about learning the lessons of the past and the importance of honoring our legacy in the right way and understanding our legacy. That's why you read history. We understand the need for change. That change is constant and adaptation is key. All that's important for what is to come, the future. And how do we shape the future that we want for all of us, for all the men, women, regardless of race, creed, or color, regardless of sex, orientation, or anything else, religion, what have you. Okay. How do we shape that inclusive environment that allows us to bring the best out of every single person? And that is more important now than ever before. Moving our nation, our world, which America is still, and as far as I can see, will continue to be an essential nation in making our world better. How do you do that? Things like these different history months are part of that, are, in my mind, vital, useful, helpful, and things that we all of us can embrace. I've been a member of something called, I hope you can see the little symbol over here, the National Naval Officers Association, and you see a bunch of different colored hands that are all joined together. Uh, and I've been a member of that since 1980 something, 88. It's been around for 50 plus years. Why does that matter? Because we all are stronger together. We all work together. And when you look at this symbol, you can't tell which one is on top and which one's on the bottom. You can't tell male from female. You can't tell gay from straight. You can't tell any of it. But you can tell that they are bonded together. And why? And for this group, it was to increase or make our sea services better. I would ask you all, in the sound of my voice, when you think about things like Black History Month or all the other history months, to consider my words of why these things are important yesterday, what it's about today, how it impacts us, and tomorrow, where it's going to take us. Because I think these are important concepts, and we all have to understand them in our own context and our own understanding, and communicate those with each other in a civil fashion, in a way where we're hearing and listening to each other. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I wasn't too long winded. And God bless our nation. God bless the men and women, services, and their families.
Good morning and welcome to the Battleship, Iowa. My name is Mike Shatinsky. I'm chairman of the board of this illustrious museum. You may ask why we are gathering and celebrating Vice Admiral Samuel L. Gravely aboard this ship this month. Of course, it's Black History Month, and he's an incredibly accomplished man, a man of many firsts as a black man. But this was his ship. This was one of the first ships he served on during the Korean War in the early 1950s. He was the communications officer aboard this ship. And his legacy is rather amazing. He went from being a man in charge of just one small communications room on board this battleship to being a 3-star admiral in charge of all the communications for the entire U.S. military, Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines. So it's been quite a journey. Again, he was a man of many firsts. He was the first black man to command a U.S. Navy warship in the mid-1950s. He rose to the rank of captain and admiral, and on that journey he commanded squadrons of ships and fleets of ships, and that's before he made 3-star admiral and was in charge of communications in an organization called the Defense Communications Agency. His formula for success was education plus motivation plus perseverance will allow you to succeed in this world, and he lived that wholeheartedly in his life journey to where he ended up as a 3-star admiral. You may have seen in the news that the U.S. Navy ships are in the Red Sea and in an area with restricted waterways called the Bab el-Mandeb and the Suez Canal. And it's because there's two things happening. Pirates are still alive, and they're still hijacking ships throughout the world today, including in that area of the Red Sea. Our Navy's been fighting pirates from the beginning. You may have, if you've ever watched the movie starring Johnny Depp, Pirates of the Caribbean. Here's something for you. It wasn't Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow in the British Navy. It was U.S. Navy on the first USS Enterprise that fought the Pirates of the Caribbean. It was Blackbeard the pirate and Jean Lafitte the pirate for the first 3 decades of the 1800s. Well, here it is today, and we're still fighting pirates. We're also responding to acts of war, trying to take out ships of the world, not just our own ships, by another group across that same sea called the Houthis. And they are, in some senses, of pirates, but more than that, they're actually terrorists. They're the worst kind of people trying to kill innocent civilians. And one of the ships on the front lines right now is the USS Samuel L. Gravely, one of our best destroyers. And that ship has shot down dozens and dozens of missiles aimed at innocent civilian vessels. And it's still there today, and it's going to be there for another number of months, I'm sure, protecting the people at sea in that area of the world. Interestingly enough, the Samuel L. Gravely, when it was commissioned, had a female commanding officer. Her name is Alyssa Ambrose. And part of the journey of our Navy is that not just being black or Filipino, it wasn't just race that was a ceiling for people that wanted to serve our country, but it was also your sex. The first woman to command, the first women to serve on board U.S. Navy warships was in 1993. I know that sounds like it was a long time ago, but think about this. Samuel L. Gravely was the first black man to command a U.S. Navy warship, and the first woman to command a U.S. Navy warship was, doing the math, 1950 to 1990, 40 years later. And today, women are completely integrated into our surface Navy. The ratio is about 20% to 25% women on board our surface ships right now. I don't know if we'll ever get to 50% on board our ships, but there is no ceiling for anybody. It doesn't matter what race, color, creed you are, what your choices are. You can serve on board our Navy and be whatever you want to be. Okay, that's enough about Samuel L. Gravely. I really am excited to have you on board. I want to thank our sponsors very quickly, and then I'm going to introduce our host. Thank you for Collier Walsh Nakagawa, the Surface Navy Association, and Atoya Profilio for sponsoring. The scholarship sponsors that you're going to learn about are sponsored by Ambassador Robert O'Brien, California Treasurer Fiona Ma, Admiral Michelle Howard, the Honorable Eric Garcetti, our past mayor, the R. Gyros family, Stephanie Hill, Bruce Double D. McRae, Marathon Petroleum, Collier Walsh Nakazawa, the Surface Navy Association, and UPS. So your teachers, you won't hear a lot about the details today, but we do offer scholarships between $500 and $2,000. We'll award 8 to 10 of those in October, depending on how well you write your essays. And it's not that much work, and it's a great topic. It's going to be something involving Samuel L. Gravely's life and his life philosophy, education plus motivation plus perseverance. Okay, I'd now like to introduce Tanya Acker, who is going to be your host, the moderator and host for the rest of the ceremony. Tanya is a distinguished attorney, writer, and also TV star. If you ever watched the show Hot Bench, she's one of the celebrity judges there, and so much more. An amazing woman. She's also on our board of directors, and I'm honored to work with her every day on board this ship. Tanya, the microphone is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. That was very quiet. Let's try this again. Good afternoon, everybody. Where's my table right there, Narbonne? Don't let them outshine you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Mike, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for your leadership of our board. And I want to thank all of you who came out this afternoon to learn a little more, not just about Samuel Gravely, who, as Admiral Shetinsky, and thank you for your service, sir, as he explained, Samuel Gravely was the first African-American to command a Navy battleship, among many other things. So this isn't just an opportunity to learn about him, it's an opportunity to learn about opportunity. All of us right now live in a world where we are bombarded with images and statements and memes and things on social media, people telling us who we are, who we can be, what we can do, and defining limitations. And today is about meeting people who defied expectations and said that they were going to be the deciders of their own lives. And with that, I'm going to introduce our two incredibly distinguished panelists. There really is not enough that I can say about these two women. You're going to learn more about them. They're going to tell you their stories, but also there's going to be a chance for all of you to ask questions. And if I don't have enough volunteers for asking questions, because I'm not shy, I literally am just going to pick somebody out and say, what do you want to know? Tell me about you, and then we're going to tell you about us. So that might happen if we don't have enough volunteers, but I sense that that's not going to be a problem with this incredible group. So first, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you my fellow Iowa National Museum of the Surface Navy board member, Rear Admiral Sandy Adams. Rear Admiral Adams had a 34-year career in the Navy. She reported to her first ship just 4 years after women could serve at sea. As Admiral Shetinsky explained, there was a time when women weren't allowed to serve their country in the way that they are now, and Rear Admiral Sandy Adams was one of those to help break those barriers. She served on 2 ships. She had numerous operational commands in the Mediterranean, in the Pacific, and in the Middle East regions. She was selected to command Navy units 5 times. She was deployed to Afghanistan, where she served as a senior advisor to an Afghan Minister of Defense and to Saudi Arabia for Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Please join me in giving me a very warm welcome to Rear Admiral Sandy Adams. And our second panelist is Dr. Kameen Samuel. She began her professional career as the U.S. Navy's first female African-American helicopter pilot, making her own history. Yeah, you can applaud now. During her 9-year career in the Navy, she had various duties, including serving as a Navy flight instructor. Dr. Samuel now works as an internal rapid transformation coach and therapist, helping entrepreneurs and leaders become more strategic and effective. She's also a best-selling and award-winning author. Her books include Increase Your Abundance, Starting Today, The Wealth Transformation Journal, and she is co-author of the Conscious Luck Workbook. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kameen Samuel. This will be much more cozy. I want both of you who have made history and have been a part of history in pretty exceptional ways to discuss and describe with our guests here what each of you think it means to defy expectations. I'll start with you, Rear Admiral Adams.
To defy expectations. So when I was your age, I didn't know that I had any other choice than to go to college, because I'm thankful my parents made it clear that that was what I was going to do. Thank goodness. But I also didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And by the end of college, I knew no matter what, I wanted to be in leadership somehow. So I tried to join the Navy. And they would not let me in 1978. And he turned me down. And a few years, and my whole family was military. I was pretty depressed about that, but it didn't take me long to figure out it's because I was a woman that he didn't care about recruiting me. So a few years later, I still had this burning desire to learn about how to be a leader, and I saw another recruiter in another state, and he was encouraging. In fact, he was telling me all the different things I could do. And he just helped me open the initial doors I needed to. But to be told you can't was something that was very scary and saddening to me. But at the same time, it put a fire in my belly that maybe that's still where I belong, and I need to go back at it and try again. And thank goodness I did. My life was changed because of it. I met people, did things, and went to places that I never thought I would experience.
What about you, Dr. Samuel?
Well, I love what the Admiral shared, because I also had no choice of whether I was going to college or not. My parents were educators and business. My dad was a businessman, and I remember asking him if I could take a year off, and let's just say I backed out of the room because it was not an option. And so my ability to go to college, and then second semester, actually it was the end of first semester senior year, I met with a Navy captain, and they said, you should take the test and go into the Navy. I'm not good at pop quizzes, and so I did not do very well. And they said, you're going to have to go to a remedial boot camp. And I'm like, no. And so when the recruiters came on campus, second semester, senior year of college, I told them the story, and they said, well, did you study? And I'm like, you can study? There's a test, a book to study. And so I did, and passed enough that they came in and said, would you like to also take the aviation exam? And I was like, what does that mean? And there were a lot of pictures and horizons and things that I had to pass, and they offered me the position. But I wasn't really wanting to go into aviation initially. I wanted to be a surface warfare. I wanted to be it was closest to business. And they said, well, try it, think about it. So for 2 weeks, I wasn't an athlete. So they said, you have to run 1.5 miles a day, and you have to swim 1 mile a day. I tried it. I'm like, this is not for me. And I switched back. And then there was just this moment where I was walking along a beach on a trip, and a formation of helicopters flew overhead. And I was like, really? And I was honestly said, really, God, and called my recruiter. And they said, I'll call you back. And I really just wanted to know the chances of switching. And they said, well, they called me back in 20 minutes. They said, you're going to you get your flight physical on this day, you're going into aviation. And I was like, no, I haven't told my parents anything. And to say being the first African-American female to fly helicopters and only the second overall to be in aviation, they had zero or negative expectations about me. And the only thing that I did at that time that really saved me was this ability to decide not to quit. I said that I told myself they could kick me out, they could say that I wasn't good enough, but I was not allowing myself to quit. And by that one choice, it allowed me to defy all the expectations, because it was hard to get my commission. I had a lot of obstacles. But from that point forward, once I was there, I could make just this ability to have the determination to keep going.
Don't quit. Now, during the video with Admiral Harris, he recounted a story of something that happened to Admiral Gravely, and I'm going to repeat it all just so it can really sink in. Admiral Gravely was once detained by military police because they didn't believe he was actually an admiral. He was detained on suspicion of impersonating an officer. He kept his cool, he maintained his composure, but I think if you really think about what that must have been like, it would have been, I think, at a minimum, a pretty troubling experience. When the two of you hear that story and are reminded of that story, is there something that you can compare that to in your own lives? And can you discuss with us how you maintain your calm and your composure when people are really challenging and sometimes coming at you for no good reason? I think that's something that all of us could get a lesson in these days, because there are so many triggers. There are so many things and suggestions and things coming at you that are enough to kind of rile you up one way or another. When you hear about that story, about how Admiral Gravely lived through that, what's a comparison that you have in your own lives?
Nothing as bad as what Admiral Gravely went through. I just can't even imagine what that would have been like. But the first thing that comes to mind is, let me set the stage a little bit, and I'll tell you about this moment that happened in front of everybody. I had reported to my first ship. We had 1,200 sailors on there. Of those 1,200 sailors, 100 officers, and of those 100 officers, I was one of 5 women, because we were new to going to ships. And I'm brand new. When you're brand new in the service, you just have a lot to learn, and you're just trying to get by and understand your orders and learn how to do things right. And one of my jobs was to learn how to drive a ship. And so when I was up on the bridge of the ship during my watch, the senior officer on the bridge team, who was 4 ranks above me, said in front of everybody, "I don't think that women should be in the Navy, much less on ships. Stay out of my way." And I can't go anywhere because we're on the bridge of the ship. And I have a job to do, and all the enlisted heard that too. And I can't talk back to him because he's senior to me. My first reaction was, I need to stay out of that guy's way. Second thing I thought of is, thank goodness he's not my boss, because he wasn't. And I decided that I'm going to not let that deviate me from what I needed to be doing, which is learning how to be a naval officer, a surface warfare officer, and keep my head down. I never told anybody about that while I was on the ship. But I will fast forward 3. By the way, I'm sure a lot of men on that ship felt that way in the beginning, but he said it to me. And he said it to me in a provocative way. 3 years later, when I left that ship, the day I was leaving, I'm carrying my bags down the passageway. He's coming down the other side. I'm like, oh my Lord, I can't believe the last event I'm going to have on this ship is seeing this fellow. And he stops me and he said, "I still don't think women should be in the Navy, but you're different." And then he walked right on. I'm like, Well, one at a time, right? It took me 3 years to change his mind. So that's my little story, nowhere near compared to what Admiral Gravely went through.
Pretty horrifying. Pretty horrifying.
Yes.
Dr. Samuel?
So mine was in getting my commission. Remember, I said that I was not an athlete, and we had to run everywhere. And there was one run, it was called the rifle run, and you had to run 1.5 miles with a rifle at attention, and then another 1.5 miles. And the first time I ran that race, I ended up in the hospital with heat exhaustion. My temperature was 105. I didn't know my name, didn't know where I was. So they allowed me to run it again, but by this time I was holding back, and then I run it again. And so about the 6th time, remember I said I wouldn't quit, and I was hoping they would just toss me out and send me home. And so I was in the chow hall getting lunch, and the drill instructors called me over, and they like the movies you see. And one of them said to me, and you can't look at them, by the way. You never look at them in the face. And he said, "They should just kick you out, Belle." Then my maiden name. "They should just kick you out." And I was like, I couldn't respond. I couldn't do anything. And so the master gunnery sergeant then said, "They won't kick her out because she's black and she's a female." So in that moment, I had a choice to remain calm, and I did. I stood there, took whatever they were going to give me, and quietly finished my lunch. I did talk to the battalion officer because it was wrong. I knew it was true that that's what they were saying, but at the time, I couldn't believe they were actually going to say it out loud. And so I went to my CO at the time, and basically the ability for myself to speak up for me, to at least call attention to it, then allowed a whole different course of action, because they started treating me differently, not poorly, but they knew that there was a boundary that they had crossed. And from that point forward, I just kept my head down, just kept moving forward until I got my commission.
Both of those are examples of how sometimes people can really show you, if not their worst sides, what's something that might be pretty close to it. Can you each talk about a time when somebody who you thought was, if not an enemy, maybe it's somebody who you thought was like not on your side, somebody who you thought would challenge you or not support you, actually surprised you and did the opposite? I tend to think that there are more good people in the world than bad, and sometimes because the bad people make so much noise and they get in your faces like that, you think that there are more of them. But can you just share an experience where somebody who you just assumed would not have your back actually did?
Well, I had an amazing 9-year career, and all of my commanding officers were extraordinary. And so it's not just one person, and I think it was also because of my ability to do the job that I was being asked of, to fly well, to be excellent at what I did. Throughout the rest of my career, there were so many people who championed me, who gave me opportunities. One was an amazing commanding officer in my Norfolk squadron in Virginia, and is Builder Brownlee. And so Commander Brownlee at the time was someone who really kept giving me opportunity after opportunity to go to schools when I was too junior, to be an officer in charge of there was on my first deployment, one of the aircraft crashed aboard ship, and the Italians were fixing it. and I was a kind of a lieutenant commander. I was a lieutenant junior grade, very junior, and they let me take the deployment over because I was a maintenance pilot and trusted me with the final maintenance. And so throughout my career, there were so many people who stepped in and championed me. He just stands out because he did give me opportunities to be an aviation safety officer, I was very junior, but they trusted me with that, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Thank you for sharing that. Sandy?
I could tell, I have many stories of people I've learned I could trust and had my back in ways I didn't appreciate, but I want to talk about my first commanding officer on that first ship I was talking about, because while you heard us tell some negative stories, the truth is there are more positive stories than there were not, or else we wouldn't have stayed in the service.
Right.
So this commanding officer of this ship, who is like 5 levels above me, was very intimidating just because of his size and his rank, and here I am still trying to figure out how to put one in front of the other. He was so intimidating. He would come by and do what we call zone inspections, which is a really close attention to detail inspection of the areas that I was responsible for. And one day, he and I had never had a one-on-one conversation, but one day we're there for his inspection. Some of my senior enlisted are there, and me, and he starts looking, and he checks a few things, and next thing I know, he takes his flashlight, which was a big flash like this, and he was like a foot taller than me, and he smashed it down on the deck, blew it into smithereens, scared the bejeebus out of me. I didn't know what had happened, and he goes, "You're not ready for inspection. Don't call me until you're ready." I'm like, what? Yes, sir. We're all standing at attention. I'm looking at the chief. What the hell happened? What the heck happened? And so I went to my boss and I said, I don't know what happened, but the skipper just had a conniption, and he was angry and he stormed off. I don't know what to do. He said, "Let me make a phone call." So he makes a phone call. I only hear one side of the phone. And he puts it down. He goes, "You got to go up and see him." That was the longest walk of my life up to that point. And I had to go all the way through the ship and up to his stateroom. And I go in there. I know I was shaking. And he looks at me. He goes, "Come on in, Sandy," with a big grin on his face. "You want some coffee?" And I'm like, this is a trick, right? I'm not sure what's going on. And I said, "Sir, what happened? You were so angry." He goes, "I wanted those guys who work for you to see that wasn't ready and that you have to answer to me. And so they need to know it's not just you asking them to do something, it's me that's asking you to do, but you just may not always say that." He said, "So I'm not angry with you. That's just part of what they need to learn and what you need to learn, and let's talk about what didn't go well." And over a cup of coffee with my hand shaking like this, I realized this man is just trying to help me be a better officer, and I never looked at him the same way because I knew his intention was to help all of us be better officers. Just his method is what I had to figure out what to do. I don't recommend that method. I never duplicated that method as an officer, but that was a big wake-up call for me. The way I'm going to be developed is not necessarily what you read about in books.
So we are here honoring the legacy of Admiral Gravely. And as a lot of us have known for a while, and for those of you who are just learning about Admiral Gravely, but it should come as no surprise to you, he signed up to serve his country at a time when America looked very different, at a time when the rules weren't as fair and equitable as they are attempting to be now. And both of you have your own stories about joining and signing up for military service at a time when the service and the country wasn't always as inclusive or welcoming to folks in your packages. One thing that I did not mention in my introduction when I introduced Admiral Adams is that she is the first Navy admiral to marry her same-sex partner, Pat, who's here today. Hi, Pat. Everybody say hi to Pat. How long have you been married, Sandy?
We've been married 10 years, we've been together 40 years, and she's the hero of my story, if you're not aware.
So we'll start with you. You talked a little bit, Sandy, about what it was to get on that ship and have someone say, I don't think women belong here. You also suggested, and I think that it was true, that even though he said it, there were others who thought it, even if they had the judgment not to say it. Given that that was the culture and that was not an unsurprising view held by many people in society at the time, why did you decide to sign up for service? Why did you join the military?
I have a lot of military in my family, both enlisted and officers, some career, some not. So I knew no matter what, I would learn how to be a leader, and because of sports and my getting a chance to teach kids judo and softball, I had this calling to leadership. So that was, it's back in the late 1970s, early 1980s, women didn't have a lot of opportunities to get leadership experience. I worked for an excellent company for a few years, but I stayed at the bottom rung for all 3 of those years, and nobody was interested in giving me more responsibility. I knew if I joined the Navy or any of the services, I would get responsibility, so that's why I joined.
Thank you. Camille?
Well, when I was graduating from college, what I knew that I just didn't want to go into a corporate job and have 2 weeks of vacation a year. And so what I wanted was to see the world. And I wanted to travel and to have opportunities. And so, the United States Navy allowed amazing travel. I was blessed to, albeit kind of backhanded, to go to Norfolk, Virginia and have 2 6-month deployments in the Mediterranean. And not bad duty to go into France and Italy and Spain, and we got to see Greece from the ship, but we weren't allowed to get off. And so it's this opportunity, as you said, it's the opportunities, because I knew whether it was going to be aviation or being a supply officer, I wanted to learn and grow and then experience life. And serve my country, by the way. Because I think for me, my older brother was Navy ROTC in college. And so while he didn't continue on to get his commission, it was just being around that military, that discipline. There's something about the uniform and the power that held that really also called me.
So here is my last question for you, and then I'm going to open it up to the students. And it's sort of follows from what you both just said about serving your country. Because right now, we are certainly living at a time in the country where we hear more than ever about how divided we are, how we're at each other's throats, how people are so different, and we are. Certainly, that's one of the great things about this country, is that we accommodate so many different people. But when you look at all of this and hear all of this, and certainly, our guests today probably spend a lot more time on social media than we do, where I think the messages are even stronger, that we're divided and, people are hating each other and things are so horrible. In the face of all of that negativity, what is something that makes you very optimistic about the country and where you think we're going?
I thought you were going in a different direction, so
that was a windy question.
No, it's a great question. Why am I optimistic? Because I am. I have, in my lifetime, I've had the opportunity to visit other countries, see other governments, other cultures, and I grew up in a very small, almost all-white town in rural Michigan. And my experience with the military in getting a chance to meet people from across the country, across the world, I have confidence in knowing we have good people everywhere, including on this fantail here, who are inspired to help serve their family, themselves, their country in a different way. Not everybody needs to serve in the military. I spoke to somebody this morning who's going to be a nurse. She's going to serve. I think there's goodness in us, and the combination of that and our democracy, the Constitution that we have here, we stay true to those principles, we will continue to improve as a nation. It takes time. It takes time. But we need to stay true to the Constitution. We will continue to evolve. I've seen it in my lifetime. You'll see it in yours.
Very nice. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Kameen?
Democracy matters. And so for us to have served and the opportunity for us to have traveled, I have traveled all over the world and seen challenging conditions. And so you all are our best hope. You are our next hope to fight for that democracy, to uphold the Constitution and what it means to live in this country. The other thing is that you do have opportunities to do whatever it is that you want to do and be whoever you want to be, and to create and to innovate and to help each other and to thrive in ways that weren't available even when I was your age. And so, yes, I had the opportunity to serve in this great nation, and yes, there's still a ways to go, and there's opportunities everywhere. I still think that, you know, everybody should do a couple of years in the military at least because it gives you a level of discipline and travel and expansion and knowing about different cultures and people and skills. So whatever it is that you want to do, that's what your military fights for, is your right to do that, your right to be whoever you want to be and to grow. And so I'm so blessed to have had that opportunity. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I would, if they said, you know, under certain circumstances, ready up right now, I'd be ready. Because I think that it's important to be of service of this nation.
Thank you. And really, on behalf of all of those whose service or who your service helped protect, I thank you. I thank you for having served your country as you did. Audience members, what questions do you have for Dr. Samuel and Admiral Adams? Yes, sir. Why don't you turn around? There's a mic behind you. Why don't you go to the mic? Introduce yourself. Everybody's like, oh, yes, you're going to go to the mic and ask your questions. Introduce yourself. Come on, sir. Don't be shy now. Introduce yourself and tell us from what school you've come today.
I'm Gabriel Roman from San Pedro High School. And my question would be, what was the favorite place you visited during your time serving?
Oh, favorite. Probably in France, I guess. There's wonderful ports of Marseille and Nice in France, and from Nice we got to go take the train down to Monte Carlo and to Naples and see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So those were my favorite.
It wasn't a vacation, but I'd have to say South Korea. I learned a lot from that culture. I was very inexperienced with South Korean history, and by getting to work with the military there and to see some of their museums, it was very eye-opening for me. Though I know I speak for both of us when I say there's nothing like coming back to the United States, where it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
Other questions? Other questions? I'm going to start pointing to my table, my Narbonne table right there, and then everybody's going to be competitive. There we go. Please.
And by the way, there are no bad questions, and we are both open. We did this before. Any question you want to ask is a fair question.
Yes.
Don't be shy. Don't forget to introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Christian De Leon. I go to San Pedro High School. I have a follow-up question about Gabriel Roman's question on travel. How long would you guys usually stay at like a location when traveling throughout?
So I did 2 6-month deployments. One was 5 months and 27 days. We knew exactly how long that was because I came back early to go to that aviation safety officer school. But it was, and I was aboard. The first deployment was aboard an ammunition tender, and it was peacetime, so it was kind of boring. But the second one was a food store, and so with the battle group, it's a little bit bigger than this ship. No, I guess not. And but we would deliver. We would go pier side, like in France and Italy, pick up all the groceries for the battle group. And then our helicopter was the dual rotors on top, and we could pick up the groceries underneath and deliver them to the ships. And so that was a lot of fun especially to do out at sea.
For me, and I was active in reserve, 2.5 years in Italy, a year in Afghanistan, 6 months in Saudi Arabia, and then in South Korea, 2 to 3 weeks at a time, but over 5 different opportunities to do that, or 7 different opportunities. So went there many times, Japan many times, but for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Australia, Thailand, that's a story all in itself. But it is one of the cool things about being the sea services. We're usually heading around the world doing what we need to do.
Any other questions? I have a question. Oh, first you, please. Don't forget to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Justin DeCastro. I go to Harvard Teacher Preparation Academy. My question is, if you could do anything different on the pathway you took to where you're at right now, what would it be?
Oh, that's so good.
I think the thing I would do, not differently but earlier, it was a hard lesson for me, was to learn to ask for help. I think particularly because there was one of so few women earlier on, I tried to be tough and take everything on myself when I had more help around me than I realized, but I just felt it was weakness to ask for help. Once I learned that skill of asking for help, it's like, wow, is this really helpful? And it softened me and made me more open in the type of leadership style that I had. So I would learn how to ask for help earlier in my life, way earlier.
And as you heard, I did 9 years, and I think if I were going to do something different, I probably would have stayed in. I would have maybe restructured my career. Sitting next to the Admiral is a daunting because part of the reason I got out was I didn't want to go to sea anymore. And so I think I would have restructured it and done some different things. I got to be a flight instructor and go to school, but I think I would have shifted it a little and stayed in longer.
Thank you for that. We have a question? Sir, please. You'll be next.
Hi, my name is Eddie Velasco. I'm from Narbonne High School, and I have a question. What is the craziest or the most dangerous thing you've done throughout your career? Oh, and have you ever seen an alien?
Have you ever seen what? What was the last part?
An alien.
An alien? So there was this one time. We were flying in Norfolk, and I'll answer the second part first. And we were flying in Norfolk around this river back up to the squadron, and I looked out my window, and I could swear that I saw this little orb outside of my window, and I went to get my second pilot to look, and it was gone. So, so I think it was an alien.
And in other news, we don't know if that's really you or if the alien actually took over your body and Dr.
That's true.
Samuel is somewhere else.
It absolutely could be some. I could be one of them. Danger. I think when I said that I went to be an officer in charge to fix the aircraft that had crashed on my first deployment, it wasn't me. It was another set of pilots. One of the things that we had to do, we went to Italy. The Italians had rebuilt the plane, and we didn't recognize at the time just the state it was in. And I was in constant contact with my command and with Washington, the heads there, because it was such a high-profile event for me to be at. And so when we went to close the aircraft, they're called clamshells, everything that covers, if you look at this one, they cover the cables and everything. They're supposed to seat and match. And these were so mismatched, but I had already gotten approval to do the maintenance flight for that day. And so I had to call back Washington and Virginia and ask for permission to take all the clamshells off and still start the aircraft, because there's 6 rotors on top and they need to sync perfectly, or if they don't, they hit each other, lots of destruction. And so I got the approval for that. You may start to notice, if you go to an airfield, there is a cement wall that is there. My team went behind that wall because they were afraid that the rotors would fly off when we started the aircraft. And so I made we did all our pre-flight and checks, and we got all clear to drop the rotor brake. And it was nerve-wracking because we didn't know if that plane was going to be okay. And so I did, and the rotors synced up perfectly, but they immediately, within 8 seconds, they were saying, shut it down, shut it down. And it was because all of the transmission fluid had drained from the aircraft. But the rotor blades did not hit each other. So we were very happy, and all went well from that point on.
Wow. Wow, that is scary. I'm going to give you 2 examples. One, I'm going to go in a little more depth. The most danger I was in was during a deployment during wartime, where I was me and my team were subjected to Scud attacks, their missiles, and they came pretty close. That's all I'm going to say there. But I want to point out something Admiral Shatinsky said during the opening, to point out that the year in 1991 when we were subjected to that attack, thousands of pounds of warheads coming in on us, women weren't allowed to serve on combatant ships. Women weren't officially allowed to fly on combat aircraft, but you could be killed, you could be shot at, and oh, by the way, that was the truth back in World War II. We had Army nurses who died overseas. They weren't in combat in an offensive role. They weren't infantry, but they still died. They were POWs. So it took years before women could be at danger just like their male counterparts, but it wasn't until 1993, 1994 that Congress said and removed the laws saying that women could not serve in combatant roles. So I just want to go into that. But I want to tell you one other the next most dangerous moment in my life. I was about your age, and I was on a motorcycle, and I was nearly run over by a semi, and it was so close, I actually thought, oh, what a shame. You know, I had so much I wanted to do in life, and he missed me by like 2 inches. It was just shocking. So, all of you who drive cars, or are in cars with others, or you're thinking about riding motorcycles or even bicycles, please be defensive. Think about it. You have so much more in front of you. You don't want to have it end because of a car accident or a motorcycle or a bicycle accident.
But I'm also just thinking that, like, you're in the moment where you're thinking you might die, and you say, oh, what a shame.
It was a moment.
Oh my gosh.
It was a moment.
Sir, in the red sweatshirt, you, sir, take the mic.
Good questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
My name is Jeremiah Jones. I'm from Narbonne High School. My question was, what was your most hated training or like most hated experience, like overseas in general?
You say they're most hated?
Yeah, like the one you hate the most.
What's the experience?
Or it's
you
like
hated
food
the
or
most?
anything like.
I think mine would have been, there had been a terrorist attack at the place that I worked at in Afghanistan. But I just happened to miss it. I was walking back from the place where I worked, and by the time 5 minutes later I got to where I could be in safety, they wouldn't open the gate because there had been a terrorist attack, and they didn't know if they could safely open the gate. And I'm saying, open the gate, open the gate. I'd like to get in here. I'm one of you. And so that was probably my most hated moment because I had to take like 5 minutes, and my panic level is going up of why won't you let me in? And so that would probably be my most hated moment. He finally let me in, but.
So most hated would probably be that run that I told you about that I ended up having to do over and over again. And the second, since you asked about food also, was when you're getting your commission, you end up in whatever lane that you're in as you're marching into the chow hall. And if you get stuck in the hamburger lane every day, you think it's good, but you're not allowed to look up and ask for ketchup or ask for anything. So it was like, and you had to eat everything. So it was having like a whole week of hamburgers with no ketchup, dry. It was awful. And I was always trying to like switch lanes, but they kept switching the meal and I couldn't get out of that lane.
That would make me mad.
I wanted you to have those dry hamburgers. Other questions? Yes, sir. Please take the mic.
My name is Reno Garcia. I'm from VHEPA, and my question is, what'd you spend on your first paycheck? Or if you did have a paycheck.
What was the?
What'd you, like, what was the first thing you spent, like?
Oh, what did first spend on a first paycheck?
What did you
First spend?
How did
spend on
they
what your
spend their first paycheck?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you spend your first paycheck?
My first paycheck I earned when I was 16 years old. I was making $1.40 an hour, and when I got my first paycheck, I got to go to the movies with my friends. That was it.
And I just remember my first military paycheck and thinking, that's it? It gets better though. It gets better as your career goes.
That was funny. Yes. Please take the mic. Yes, you in the glasses, white sweater. Don't forget to introduce yourself.
I'm Jay Rich from VHCPA. What's the most valuable lesson you learned in your time serving?
What's the most valuable lesson you learned in your time serving?
Boy, so many to choose from. I think the most valuable lesson was a leadership lesson, which is that every single person that I work with, whether that's a peer or somebody who works for me or somebody who works above me, we can all take on more. We can all do more. The key is to listen, what they want to do, what they're good at, what they want to learn how to do, and we can be an amazing team if I keep in mind that it's not just about me and what I can do, but it's what about each one of us can and wants to do.
So one of the lessons that I learned that served me both in the military and in corporate, when I was in corporate and then I teach with my clients now, is to take responsibility for your career. We had to write a performance review and submit those to our department heads in the military. And in the military, you had to write your own, tell what you did, because sometimes you might be deployed, you might be away, and you don't have the same department head all the time. And basically, you're writing it, really talking about an understanding, and this is for all of you. You will all have, in whatever kind of career you have, to write some kind of performance review, fitness report, whatever, to talk about what you do. Never assume that your bosses know what you do. They are busy with the things that they have in their mind. And so by learning that skill in the military and writing from the best, not making anything up, not overselling myself, but writing and really telling the story of what I've been doing and how I've been doing and what I've been learning, I was surprised when I got to corporate and people didn't write their own performance reviews. They left it up to other people. And if you leave it up to somebody else, they won't know everything that you do. And so this ability for us to stand up for ourselves, to speak up, and to champion ourselves, to keep a file of your wins, keep a file of when somebody sends you an email and says you did a great job, put that somewhere that you can reference back. That to me allowed me to excel in both in my Navy career and in corporate.
Great responses. Other questions? Yes, in the back. Thank you, sir. Don't forget to introduce yourself and tell us the school that you're from.
Hello, my name is Elmer Garcia. I'm from SQA, and my question is, how intense was the training? Like, how many people did you see pass out or quit on the first day?
So, the training is really intense, and I was very glad to have made my choice not to quit. There were a lot of people who quit after they got their haircut. So I'm like, why? Like, do it a minute earlier, like, because they were bald, and they had told me that, you know, they won't cut my hair, and I had really short hair, but they did anyway. But all of the training, it's intense, but it's also gradual. So I had no aviation experience whatsoever, hadn't even thought of flying a plane before. And I really do believe, like, if they could teach me to fly, they can teach anybody to fly, because it was simply just that you learn ground school, you learn aerodynamics, you learn about an airplane. In the Navy, at Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard all train very similarly with a prop plane. Then you get to choose your aircraft of choice, and then you go on to the squadron. So the Navy, regardless of what you do, it's a well thought out process, even though it's intense, so that you have enough skill, you're learning the skills, you're being tested as you go along, so that you get stronger and stronger. Yes, there are a lot of people who, getting my commission, dropped on request early, doing push-ups, you know, running, whatever. But it's the ability to just keep at it with the goal in mind, realizing that's just for a season, we just have to do this for this time and keep moving forward.
How many people in here are on a sports team? Sports team? So if somebody else was to ask you a similar question, how intense was it? You think about how you develop your capability. It's not just physical, it's mental too, right? Particularly as you come together as a team. Well, the purpose of our basic training and the other training that we go through in life is that we have to be able to physically and mentally handle challenges. And sometimes if you're not stressed about it, then you don't find out what your limits are and learn from that and that kind of thing. So that's very important. A lot of people who join the military already were in sports before, because, by the way, once you're in the military, essentially you're professional athletes, because you are going to be working on aircraft and surface ships and submarines and all the different things that the service has allowed. So you do need to be fit, and you will stay fit as long as you're still serving.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am, right there.
Hi, my name is Emilian, and I go to Norman High School. If you weren't where you are today, where would you be at? Where do you think that you'll be at?
Wow. Provocative. If you weren't where you are right now, where would you be and what would you be doing?
I think the only thing I could think of is probably a teacher or a high school administrator, only because that was another path that was available to me because of my mom was a high school principal. I come from a long line of educators. I did go to school for pre-med, but that didn't work out. So I would have probably been a great teacher.
I would have gone into journalism. My bachelor's degree is in journalism because I was inspired by things that were happening in our country in the 60s and 70s, and I saw the important role that journalism was playing, a very important part of our democracy. So I was inspired by that, and if I hadn't joined the military, I would have done a career in journalism.
Great answers. Other questions? Yes, sir.
And I want to piggyback on that. You know, when I was your age, I didn't know what I was going to be when I was going to grow up. The key is to live life, get started, follow your passions, and then see what other doors come open for you. It will all work out. Just keep working at it.
All right.
Do your best and opportunity happens.
He pointed at me.
Now it's your turn.
All right. Oh, wow. I'm Bradley with Matsu. I'm from San Pedro High School. And for you guys that were you guys were leaders in the Navy, what was the best attribute that you guys had, or what do you guys think the most important attribute of being a leader is?
Being a great listener, and I would add not being afraid to look in the mirror and realize what's going well and what's not going as well, and learning from that.
I would add to that also the ability to take care of the team. We are taught that phrase, no person left behind, is not just a slogan. And when I was in corporate and our teams were really fractured and not speaking to each other, and it was like, for me, it was all about us working together in harmony, communicating, and that to me, because in an aircraft, I had to communicate well with everybody in the aircraft. And so that ability to see the team and realize that we have to do it together was super important.
That was a great question. Where's the next great question? From the gentleman. Oh, right there. And then, sir.
The woman in the young woman in the...
young lady, we'll get to you just next. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Ryan Adams, and I go to VHCPA. Have you ever worked or been associated with anybody in the Army?
Come on, speak up and come a little closer to the mic.
Yeah. Have you ever been associated or worked with anybody in the Army or the Air Force during your service? And if so, what was your experience with them?
I was born on an Air Force base. My father was in the Air Force. I've served a lot with the Army. But the Navy works with the Army a lot to help protect their ports when they're bringing things in. I work closely with the Army in Afghanistan. In fact, I was one of the handful of Navy people in that area doing some similar work. So one of the things that you may not realize if you don't have any experience with the military is that we all very much work closely together. The Navy has its role, the Army, the Coast Guard has its role, but we really are a joint team that works together to protect this country and our citizens.
I had the opportunity to work with U.S. Army. I also had the opportunity to work with the Israeli Army. Just a few years ago, I did a program with Army personnel transitioning out of the military, and it was wonderful. These were all Army people who had been 20 plus years, and they are extraordinary human beings. who while we do land and sea very different, but there's just this camaraderie with the military.
Thank you for that. Young lady, please.
I saw that you have ribbons.
Introduce yourself and then tell us your school.
Yeah, I'm Haley Espinoza from San Pedro High School. I saw that you had ribbons. I'm gonna get mine soon. Which one was like the most difficult to get or significant to you?
By the way, she has ribbons and things on her also. She's just not wearing her,
yeah, it was for both of you.
Uniform today, so she'll get to answer this too. I'd like to tell people that these ribbons all represent teamwork. Every single ribbon represents the results of teamwork. The most difficult one probably is this one, which shows that I served 34 years in the Navy. So,
great. I think some of my, as Admiral said, it's so important for us to see that it's not just one person. The only individual. It looks like it's an individual ribbon. I mean, all of mine are dear to my heart. But these bottom two E's are for expert pistol and rifle. That to me was also one of my favorite ones because I had to learn how to honor a weapon, how to take care of it, really see it as something that was to be taken care of and honored. The challenge I had when I first tried to get my expert pistol and rifle was I'm left-eye dominant and I didn't know it. Oh. And so all of my firing was off. And so the team had to help me see that. And so whether it was getting a medal for taking that deployment over or whatever, it's this ability to see that everything that as we build those ribbons, it's everyone together.
Before you sit down, tell us about the uniform that you're wearing. I can't read the patch.
It's the Police Academy San Pedro. We're like basically it's like a whole, like different grade levels are able to come together and we all get like ranked, like I'm Sergeant 1 right now. And we have like a lot of competitions that we do, and overall it's a really great academy that helps to if you want to become in law enforcement or if you just want to have a better exercise or like get fit or just go to competitions and field trips. So it's
good for you. Congratulations. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. We have time for one more. You are our last question, sir. Head yourself to the mic. Give a round of applause for the last questioner.
Good, engaging questions this time. Yeah.
Don't forget to introduce yourself and tell us your school.
My name is Achilles Sineza, and I go to San Pedro.
Closer to the mic, can't hear you.
Hello? Oh, there we go. My name is Achilles Sineza, and I go to San Pedro High School. And my question for you, Admiral, is how do you think that being in a same-sex relationship and being a woman played a role in promotion?
I got most of that. How does being in a same-sex relationship and a woman, I didn't hear the rest of it.
Played a role in promotion.
Play a role in promotion.
It was kind of the opposite. One of the things that, when I think about Admiral Gravely, he couldn't hide his diversity. Women, we can't hide our diversity, but I was able to serve, which I was, so inspired to do, I was able to serve in silence. I did not have to reveal, and I, in fact, could not reveal my sexual orientation. And oh, by the way, civilians couldn't either. It's not like the military was dramatically different from the civilian side. So I think I got promoted to this rank despite my being lesbian because I had to hold myself back. Admiral Shatinsky and I served together for many, many years, and we served well together. But I could never be my full self with him because I couldn't reveal it for two reasons. It was against the law and military regulations for me to reveal it, and I also would put that burden on him that puts him at risk, and that's not fair. So we served in silence, and I say we, and this is why Pat's the hero of my story, because every few years we would ask ourselves, will I continue to serve or not? Because we don't have to necessarily do that. And she supported me in silence, in the background, in the shadows, all the way along. Then once we had the opportunity to get married, we did so, and you'd be amazed with how well that went. But we were able to come out and get married 2 years before I retired. So I think if I got promoted to rank despite everything, because now I can be myself and I don't have to hide. Life is so much easier. It's just so much easier. I cannot tell you. I have fuller relationships. I can bring my full self to work and to the volunteer work that I do, where I couldn't do that before. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for your question.
I got.
Oh, you have a follow-up to your own question?
Yeah, I got one more for Doctor. Do you still fly?
Very good.
Do I still fly? No, I loved flying, and it takes a level of discipline and focus and consistency that I chose. I'm not a partial flyer. I would have to do it all the time, and so no, I don't. But I highly recommend it if you're thinking about it. I do recommend flying. It is, especially on these days like here, it's quite fun.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
May we have another round of applause for our incredible panelists?
Great question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you both. And I want to thank you. You all are a tremendous, terrific audience. Great questions. You're super thoughtful. So thank you. Thank you for your time and attention.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break with a movie. You're going to see another incredibly accomplished person speak. She pre-recorded a video since she can't be here in person. Her name is Michelle Howard. Admiral Gravely was a man of many firsts. Michelle Howard is a woman of many firsts. The first woman to command, black woman to command a U.S. warship. And she is the first black woman to make the rank of 4-star admiral. So incredibly accomplished. So she has a few words to say to you, and then we're going to move into the scholarship portion of today's gathering. Thank you.
Hello, shipmates. I'm Admiral Michelle J. Howard. I'm the first woman to reach the rank of 4 stars in the United States Navy. I want to say welcome to Black History Month, and I want to talk about one person and how he had an impact on my life even before he met him. I first learned about Admiral Gravely when I was a 12-year-old. My father was an Air Force Master Sergeant and had retired to Colorado. The local Air Force base put on a Black History Month educational program for local school children, and I was excited, and I went. They had all these wonderful comic books about military heroes, men and women who had served, and there was this new comic book about Admiral Gravely, the first African American to reach the rank of 1 star in the United States Navy. And it was literally just that year, the year I got the comic book. It was amazing to me that somebody could come into a Navy in World War II, be one of the first officers to serve at sea, and then to grow up and become captain of a ship. I was enchanted. That same year, I saw a documentary on service academies, and I got all excited. Now, I think it was about the Air Force Academy, and bear with me, my dad was an Air Force Master Sergeant, but I thought that's what I want to do. So I go talk to my older brother and say, hey, I know what I want to do. I want to go to a service academy when I'm old enough. And he said, you can't go. You can't go. It's against the law. I thought he was messing with me. He goes, no, it's against the law. Go talk to Mom. So I go talk to Mom, and she says, honey, he's telling you the truth. service academies are closed to women by law. And I was upset because I could keep up with my brothers on my bike. Well, she said, wait. You're only 12. You might change your mind when you get older. No way. So she said, look, here's what I encourage you to do. If you are still interested when you're older, I encourage you to apply to the service academy. Then if you're rejected because you're a woman, we'll sue the government. And I was like, what? And she's like, no, wait, don't, okay, hang on. There's more to this. If you're truly passionate about this and you think it's the right thing to do, do it. But if it goes to the courts, it could go all the way to the Supreme Court. And if that happens, it could take years. And even if the Supreme Court decides you're right and you should be allowed to go, you could be too old to go when that decision is made. She goes, but other women would get to go then. She said, you need to do the right thing, not just to benefit yourself, because when you do the right thing, it benefits the community. That lesson stayed with me my whole life. And I thought about, wow, I need to make sure I do the right thing with passion. And then another piece hit me. As I got older, I tried to learn more and more about Admiral Gravely. I eventually applied to the Naval Academy and got into the Naval Academy. I was in an old library one day and I found this book, Black Company, published in 1972. It's written by the commanding officer of a PC chaser, a patrol craft sub chaser. It's the first integrated sub chaser in the United States Navy. The first Black officer to come on board is Samuel Gravely. The captain talks about challenges I never even had to think about. When Samuel Gravely was commissioned, he gets to Norfolk and he can't even stay in the bachelor quarters on the base because they're segregated. He gets on board the PC chaser and the captain is really impressed with this young man. And he says he's outshining the rest of the junior officers. And then it really hits home to the captain how big an experiment this is, integrating African-American officers into the US Navy. Because the first time they pull into port somewhere, he gets a call from the base commander wondering if they're going to use the officers' mess. And the base commander is encouraging him to make Samuel Gravely stay on board the ship because the Southern officers in the Navy might not be happy that Samuel Gravely is going to eat in the same mess with them. And the commanding officer decides that's not the right answer. And so he approaches Samuel Gravely and says, hey, we're all going to go to the mess. Would you like to come with us? And it turns out Samuel Gravely had a date that night. So, challenge avoided. But he watched as similar challenges happened to Samuel Gravely the rest of his time on that submarine chaser. And what I realized is you not only have to have passion about what you do, but you have to have courage. There are so many people that we can read about in our lives who can inspire us. Not just our parents who tell us to do the right thing, but people like Samuel Gravely who go about doing the right thing with courage and grow up to be successful because they turn out to be the best. I would encourage you to find out more about this hero, Samuel Gravely, and write about him and let him inspire you. Let him inspire you to get an education. Let him inspire you to be a leader, and let him inspire you to be the best citizen that you can be. Happy Black History Month.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that special presentation from Admiral Howard. She's a prior Gravely Award recipient. And now you've heard a little bit, you're going to hear more about our scholarship contest. And the reason that we're able to have the scholarship contest is because of the generosity of some of our fantastic sponsors. One of our prime sponsors is here, Joe Walsh of Collier Walsh Nakazawa. They generously help sponsor our scholarship contest every year. Joe, please, thank you so much, and please join me for a few words. Please welcome Joe Walsh.
Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. So Collier Walsh Nakazawa is a law firm based here in Long Beach. We have an office in Seattle as well. We're a veteran, minority, and woman-owned business, and we're very proud of the fact that we're able to be sponsors of the Gravely Essay Contest. I'm humbled by Dr. and Admiral, and of course Tanya as well, and Admiral Satinsky. And I'm even more humbled that we're able to speak at times at the actual Gravely Award evening. But I just want to take just 30 seconds of more of your time and just kind of downplay the idea that this is a contest and downplay the fact that it's a scholarship. The scholarship sounds like, you know, way up there academic-wise. This is an opportunity for you to learn something about a really brave and incredible individual and see how it inspires you, as Tanya said. And so why not you? Why can't it be you? Why shouldn't it be you? Whoever's there thinking, I'm not going to go to college, knowing my family's gone to college, I don't think that's for me. Why not? All these people that you've heard from today, Admiral Howard, Admiral Adams, Dr. Samuels, all have had that sense of doubt along the way as well. So we are thrilled that you're here. We are absolutely honored and consider our privilege that we're able to give back to our community. We started as one of the original sponsors for the Gravely Scholarship Contest Award, and we've been overtaken by so many others that have contributed as well. So there's cash involved for sure, and that'll help defray the cost of higher education. But just take 5 seconds and ask yourself, why not me? I can make something happen here. So I encourage all of you to take the time, give it some serious thought, and submit an application, submit an essay, and let's see you guys in October as well. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Why not you? It should be you. I really hope that all of you will give it serious consideration. Just think about this. Just think about this. When Samuel Gravely signed up for the Navy, there was no admiral that looked like him. When he served aboard this very ship as communications officer, there was no Navy admiral. Nobody thought that one day they'd be celebrating him. And today, this very moment, there is a battleship in the Red Sea. You've seen it on the news, the USS Gravely, named after him as to honor his service and his legacy. So each of you who are sitting there in this audience, why not you? You have no idea how great your future can be. And thank you so much, Joe. Thank you to Collier Walsh Nakazawa for your generous contribution. And I'm really excited to have all of you participate. And to tell you more about that, I would like to welcome to the stage the head of our scholarship opportunity. I won't call it a contest, but it's a scholarship opportunity. You'll get a lot from participating in it. To tell you more about it as a phenomenal educator and someone who's really been at the helm of this project for years, Dr. Barbara Shannon. Please welcome Dr. Shannon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to make this short because if you're like me and you had turkey, you're probably about to take a nap. That's why I had a ham sandwich. I'm not going to do the turkey, okay? So as I said, I'm Dr. Barbara Shannon, and I'm a member of the host of the scholarship committee. You mean you can't hear me? Oh my God, okay. I want to do a first attendance check though, because I want to know who's here. Narbonne, you want to raise your hand? Harbor Prep. Synergy. San Pedro High School. Did I miss anybody? Okay, so I want to tell you about this opportunity that started in about 2015. There were a group of us sitting around wondering how to engage young people like you and your families to come down and look at this beautiful piece of history you have here. Now, I was in education now, just retired, so I've been in education for over 50 years. And I know one way to get people to do things is to tell them that there's some money involved, because people like money. But the second thing we said, because we also know that young people need to write a lot, and one of the ways that you could write a lot and learn history is by having an essay contest. So with the essay contest, we decided to hook the word scholarship along with that. Our very first year we started, we had 3 people submit essays. We gave away one $250 scholarship. Last year, we had close to 200 essays. We gave 7 scholarships, with the highest being $2,000. Now, some of you might say, oh, $2,000, what can that do for me? So I decided to look back, so I have to let you know I'm a little bit older than you are. And when I went to college, believe it or not, it was $110 a semester to go to UCLA. I was a senior in high school. I wrote approximately 40 essays, one to Wrigley's Chewing Gum because I got money. I got 10 $50 scholarships, which today would be worth, I looked it up, $469.23. So that's what it was worth then. So I don't want to call it a contest, like Mr. Walsh said, Ms. Akers said. What I want you to do is be inspired by the speakers that you heard today, starting with Rear Admiral Harris, who told you, remember the past, be aware of the present, because it determines the future. And all of us here, at least me sitting out here, I see my future in all of you. I also like what Dr. Samuel said, Admiral Adams said, about courage and not being afraid. Some of you may be saying, I can't write. I wrote a Wrigley Spearmint Gum on why I like to chew Wrigley Spearmint Gum. I mean, you know, if I can do that, you can do anything, right? So first of all, I want to see how well you were listening. I'm not going to tell you a lot about Vice Admiral Gravely because you heard that he did a lot of first. So I'm going to ask the question right now, which was told at the very beginning by Rear Admiral Harris. When did Vice Admiral Gravely serve on the USS Iowa? What year? Who can tell me? And also, Admiral Shatinsky mentioned this. What year? I have a little token for you if you can answer that question. Yes, sir. 19. Is 53 close enough? 1943, no. 53? All right, we're going to go with 53. You want to come forward? I have a little pen for you. Okay. There's one problem we have when we have students who, when you write your essay. Some of you have forgotten the difference between a noun and a verb and an adjective. Now, you laugh. Name Vice Admiral Gravely's 3 keys to success. Who can do that? Okay, young lady over here. Okay, she said education, motivation, and perseverance. All right, Now, you laughed when I said the other, so I'm going to ask. What parts of speech are those 3 words? Who can tell me? Yes, sir. Ma'am. Verbs. Nope. Wait. Yes. What part of speech? Yes. No. What part of speech? Who? I don't know. I wasn't looking. What did you say? Noun. They're all 3 nouns. Noun. Okay, so now you say, who cares? As one of the readers of the essay council, I care a lot. Because not only do you have to talk about those 3 things, but you have to make sure you don't make them into verbs, because it's not the same thing, right? If perseverance is a noun, what is persevered? A verb. There's a difference between the 2. Please make sure you keep that in mind as you write. So let me tell you what you're going to do really quick here. All right. So, sometime next month, your teachers are going to get a flyer from us talking about the contest. Okay? When that flyer comes through, please do me a favor. You all have phones. Take a picture of it. Take a picture of what's on it so you remember what's on it, okay? Again, it was mentioned that winners will be notified in October. So how many of you did I say they were here? About 200? So I want you right now on your calendar to put the 3rd Saturday in October, and just in case that one isn't the one, put the 2nd Saturday in October and mark the 4th Saturday in October. In other words, keep all the Saturdays in October open, because when you win or when you get the scholarship, we want you there to get it. Okay? So you have now marked out all Saturdays in October. Everybody do that on your calendars? Because some of you are saying, I'm not going to win. Okay? All right? Now, when we first started out, we had a minimum of 250 words. Our minimum is now 700. You go, oh, I can't do 700. Yes, you can, because some students get all the way up to thousands. So we're giving you 700 words to talk about this fantastic person who was the first who did a lot of things, all right? You just heard Admiral Howard talk about some of the things he had to face. How would you, as you gentlemen are playing with your cap tops over there, I'll be finished in a minute. I know you all face things today. How many of you have been turned away from going into some place because of your race or your gender? How many of you have run into that yet in your life? I am so happy for the small numbers that I see here. Are you telling me that the world is changing? I hope so, okay? Because Rear Admiral Gravely faced a lot of these as being the first in many things. Some of you going to college, how many of you will be first generation going to college? Let me see first gens, okay? There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be different to you, but I want you to remember everything you've heard today from our 2 panelists that are here, from the persons on the screen. You can do it. And don't let anybody tell you you cannot. So I'm going to go with what Mr. Walsh said. I would like to see every single one of you write an essay. Now that means I won't get a lot of sleep, but that's okay because sleep doesn't matter anymore at my age. All right? So, I'm going to tell you how to do this right. First of all, when your teacher tells you about the contest, please do me a favor, do your rough draft right then. Okay? Don't procrastinate. All right? How many of you have Grammarly installed on your computers? If you do not, install Grammarly, please. Please. It's free. Okay? Third thing, please don't do like we all do. Read the first word and figure you know all the rest. Read their requirements carefully. We have to disqualify essays every year because people don't. We use APA, not MLA. So ask your English teacher what the difference is to make sure you do it right. Important. Are you listening? You need at least one adult to read your essay before you turn it in, and they have to sign that they did. Please don't pick your big brother unless he's got a degree in English. All right? He's your friend. He's going to do it at the last minute. Grab a teacher. Give them a week to do it. Okay? Again, in 2016, we awarded 1 scholarship. Last year, we awarded 7. All right? Does anybody have any questions for me? Now I'm going to take down names, and I want to see all of you with an essay. You want to see me sleep? I want to see the essays. All right? As juniors, this may be the first essay you write, but this is a good place to start. As juniors, next year as seniors, you have your personal statements to write. You have all kinds of essays to write. And you have essays to write for scholarship. Let this be your training ground. All right? All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. That completes our event for today. Again, please enter, submit your essays. It'll be good for you, plus it's worth a few bucks. If you could, and when you leave, head out this way. There are swag bags, as there should be at any event like this, for you to pick up on your way out. And for anybody in the Surface Navy Association, if you would come up and gather around this table, we're going to cut a birthday cake. Today is a notable event. There's a couple things we're going to celebrate. One is the 61st birthday of this battleship, the Battleship Iowa. The other is this is the 30th anniversary of women on combatants in the Navy. So I'm going to ask Admiral Sandy Adams to man the saber and lead us in cutting the cake. Make it dramatic.
So just so you all know, this is a ceremonial sword. It is a replica of a real cutlass that enlisted men used back in the day on wooden ships. But the only thing we can cut with this today is a birthday cake, so it's not dangerous.